Live. We're back.
Mhm.
Yes. Guys, I'm so excited to be back here today with Dorothy Graham O'Dell. And whether you're watching this today or whether you're watching it in the replay, get to know this woman. She is amazing. Okay, so why are we here? So, this round of conversational series is to talk about fear, how fear impacts us, how we can work through it. And what I wanted to do, what I am doing with this series, is just bringing through different voices and people from different walks of life and different understandings so that you can see who best resonates with you to determine what tips and solutions work best for you. And this is my good friend, Dorothy Graham O'Dell. Dorothy is the author of The Overcomer. If we can all see that. Guys, if you haven't gotten this book, definitely snag a copy. Dorothy's all about facing your challenges through fear and courage, and just working to best understand you and who you are as you work through life through our experiences. She is also she's an overcomer coach. So Dorothy helps people overcome those fears in life and helps you work one step through the next of working through. And this amazing lady has her podcast starting this Friday. The Overcomer, the Unstoppable Overcomers, right, Dorothy? Did I get that right?
Yep, you did.
Awesome. So if you haven't yet, follow Dorothy on LinkedIn. She's on YouTube. She's on Facebook. And with all that being said, Dorothy, welcome. And thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Jen. And those of you that don't know Jen, well, you should because it's her show, but she's amazing. Absolutely amazing. This woman, I don't know. It was a divine appointment, and I'm truly blessed to have gotten to know Jen. She helps everybody and anybody in her path. So definitely stick close to her.
Thanks for that, Dorothy. Yeah, and we have a couple good mornings here. LinkedIn user, if tell us who you are, we would love to know. So good morning. And good morning, Angel. It's great to see you
Good
again.
morning.
I hope you're well. All right, Dorothy. So talking about fear, the good old word of fear.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell me about how fear shows up for you?
Well, for me, I sometimes it's like it almost in some instances will paralyze me and make me realize that I'm coming out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And sometimes like it will actually stop me, but then sometimes like I just drive right through. I'm the type of person though that once I've identified that is fear talking and not faith, then I take action and start moving steps forward to get past that fear.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like fear, from growing up with parents that were chronically ill, I don't feel fear anything medically, which is kind of weird. We have faced heart and stroke. We have faced kidney failure. We have faced 2-time cancer survivor for my dad. And that when I get a phone call from any one of them saying, hey, I'm in the hospital, I don't go to fear. I go to, okay, what's the next step?
Yeah.
But yet for something as simple as Zoom schooling my stepson, and the differences in that, it's just like, it's overwhelming for me at times. So, I have to take a step back and just really assess the situation and know that, we're in the middle of a pandemic still, and he's just a child. And, the things that come up, are things that aren't normal right now, but in an unnormal time. So just really focusing on what's the next step for that. But in those situations for me, it's like I really have to force my way out of that, where with a medical situation, it's okay.
Yeah.
So it's really
do you think that there's you mentioned some great nuggets in there. The first one that you mentioned is really how that fear can either paralyze us and stop us in our tracks, or it can really push us to keep going. The other thing that I really found interesting in what you mentioned is how that even when fear shows up when it comes to health related, do you think that driver is some of even it's almost all like a have to, there's no not doing it. There's no not showing up.
Yes.
And I think with that is how can we bring that into other areas to make the other parts of life, yeah, there's no not doing this if it's something that just we want so desperately for our life.
That is so true. And actually, just that triggered, or not triggered, but reminded me of something that we had said the other day in our conversation where, sorry, I had
Okay.
it and it was there. You're right. Like if medical, it's something that you have to do and you just keep putting the one foot forward. And it was great what I wanted to say, and now it's out of my head.
We'll come back to it. Okay. when it shows back up, just it's all good, just a conversation. So we have a couple comments, so I'll jump in. Hi, Haley. Thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
And good morning, David. Yes, thank you. I am looking forward to a powerful conversation too. Yay.
Awesome.
Okay, so fear driving us. I'll give you an example. So, guys, anyone who knows me and who has been watching me for any amount of time, showing up on stage, live, on stage in front of audiences, it inevitably still brings me anxiety. I get anxious moments before moments like this. And for me, that fear has turned into a driver that I've allowed to say my why and what I'm bringing to the world and the messages I'm bringing to people about talking about emotions and mental health and anxiety and overcoming fear and not letting it stop us is more powerful than that fear. How does that resonate with you, Dorothy?
Oh, for sure. And when I go live, normally I have no fear at all. And this morning it was just like, oh my gosh. And I've never had that before. So it wasn't really fear, more like anxiousness, because I'm thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? And I always pray before I go on a show or something like that. But I don't know why all of a sudden today it's just like, there it is, it's showing up. And I'm thinking, but it's still, the show must go on, right?
Yeah.
So that's, just, I don't think there's any wrong thing to say, especially when it comes to fear, because we all process fear differently. And I think that just the fact that we're out here talking about it, because people don't talk about it,
right.
And that's what's so great about these like shows like yours, where people can identify and it's not talked about, and that's why we're breaking that stigma, because the world is out there and everybody deals with it, but no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, and in that, for me, lies the how, right? Like how do we help support people in that pushing through, even when there's the anxious moment? So what do you do when you encounter that moment of fear, that you feel anxious, you feel maybe that, to me, I feel a lot of physiology shift when anxiousness or fear shows up. And I have a very outlined, here's what I do when it does. Right. Do you have some things that you follow when fear shows up for you?
Well, if I can, I immediately try and go right to meditation. Like I found myself yesterday, there was things that I have not had to deal with, but they kept coming up yesterday. And I was getting more aggravated. And I had your voice and Dr. Chrissy's voice in my head saying, you need to get grounded. So I was just immediately started, just even at my desk, I closed my eyes and I just tried to focus on, when I do it, I focus on God and just ask for guidance and wisdom at that moment. And then I take myself through the steps in my mind on, okay, how could I have handled it differently? First of all, what was the trigger? How could I have handled it differently? And I ended up, everybody, when you're in the moment, you always think it's everybody else's problem, but truly it's you, because, you're the one that's getting triggered by it. So obviously, it starts with you. And I ended up doing that yesterday and just walking myself through that. And then I was calm the rest of the day, but identifying that and doing that. So that, and if I can't do that, well then, if I'm at work, then I'll go for a walk. Just get away from the desk and get away from what I'm really focusing on at that moment.
Yeah. I think all really good suggestions, Dorothy, and that I follow a lot. You mentioned something really well in there for me that I've really recognized, and that's asking myself the question, how is this serving me? Our bodies, I really, really believe that our bodies are always just trying to tell us something.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that from our ancestry, sometimes that physiology shift is trying to say, run.
Yep.
And if instead, like for me, I reframe it to say, and we know that, I don't know which chemical it is, but the chemistry of fear is very close to excitement. And for me now, just even doing that simple reframe to say, I am so excited to have this conversation this morning and show up on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook to be able to have these conversations. And that reframe has certainly helped me, in addition to the grounding. And a simple, guys, for anyone watching, a simple technique that I use even at my desk when I'm working, to Dorothy's point, or even if I find myself in a situation that I know that I can't necessarily step away and get in a calm meditative state, is I'll literally just feel like I'm grounding to the earth and the trees are with me. And it may sound however it sounds to you, but it is actually very stabilizing and grounding in the moment when you can just get present.
That's awesome. That's good.
Yeah.
I'll
And
put
even,
that in my memory.
yeah, for me, it works beautifully to just imagine that I'm grounded like the trees. So another one with that, to all these points, is just being present, just being present in conversation, I think for me has been so life-changing, because I've historically been go, 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 do, do, do. And as a person who's passionate and a high performer, I like to make sure that I'm supporting and serving all people. And I've at times found myself not supporting myself, which in turn causes that anxiousness, which in turn that fear shows up for me.
Right.
So present, just being present.
Exactly. For sure.
Yeah. So Dorothy, when you, how do you interpret fear when it shows up for you?
Basically, when I feel fear, it's like I feel overwhelmed. So I feel like a sense of, sometimes it's panic, and sometimes it's, what am I going to do next? And like yourself, I'm a very action-oriented person, and as a recovering workaholic, and I think some of what had scared me in the past about having my own business and things like that is I didn't want to get into that trap of working around the clock, because I had done that in several other businesses. And I just knew that I didn't want to do that. But lately I've been hearing be instead of do. And even though there is a million things to do, I don't really feel like doing it. Like, there's days you don't feel like doing it, but you still do it anyways. But then the days that are like, no, like you just cannot do it, I would have forced myself in the past to do it. And now I just allow, I'm thinking that that's God telling me you need a break, child. So that's what I'm doing now. So that's for me, what shows up. It's just like an overwhelming sense that it's hard. It doesn't feel light. It doesn't feel easy. It feels like crap. For me is the best way to put it. But then, reframing the mind, and the mind is a powerful tool. And I never realized how much, so except for the last 10 years, that your mind can be your biggest enemy or your biggest strength. Yeah. And, just by changing little phrases or little things like, oh, I have to watch so-and-so. Well, it's a pleasure to watch so-and-so.
Yeah.
It is my absolute pleasure to Zoom school my stepson.
I get to. I love it. Yeah. So you bring up another really good nugget and another really good point for our viewers, and that is the philosophy of be instead of do. Can you, for anyone who has kind of that hard time slowing down and just receiving and allowing, can you explain a little bit more about anything else about how you do that, or how you kind of calm and center and just allow, even when you have all this stuff that you can think of on the proverbial to-do list,
Mhm.
and
There's
not
still
get
several.
sucked into that and really just be present to the be and the allowing?
Yeah.
Maybe explain a little bit about what that means for our viewers.
Right. So it's funny because I just heard that term last July, which
Okay.
is really, really crazy. And at first I was like, what do you mean by that? Because, do as in like I always do and work, and be means just be in the present state instead of thinking, because I was always 100 steps ahead. So instead of like 100 steps ahead, no, be in this moment. Like, what do I have to do in this moment? And so you just be that person, which means to me just um, slowing down. And sometimes my mind can race like 100 miles per hour. And I try and quiet my mind for me. And sometimes it's not always easy. And I've literally, when I'm in the stages where I'm really creative and I'm in the next big book that I'm writing, or something like that, I literally have to sit on my hands, sit in the front room on my chair, and just be quiet for 10 minutes. And I find that even now I have to do that once in a while, but I know it's not healthy to work so much. So I'm trying to find the life balance of work, home, getting the YouTube channel up, and the live show. It's trying to find that balance, because I don't want to be that overworked, stressed person. Excuse me, that I had been in the past. I'm working towards different goals and things like that. But in the same sense, just being present and being in that moment instead of thinking, and so another, for instance, my husband has no problem chilling and taking it easy. And that sometimes drives me crazy because that's not who I am. But so I find he calms me down and I bring him up a couple notches. So I don't. About a couple months ago, he asked to go do something, and I'm like, well, but I have this and this and this to do. But then I stopped, and I'm like, wait a minute. This is what I want too, and he's just as important as anything else. So I took the moment, and I took the time to go and do what he wanted. So being in that present moment with him, like, it's not always about work, and it's not always about having to get something done. So for me, that's, in a nutshell, what it is for me to ground myself. Just think, we say that we want to spend more time with our family, but what are we actually doing about it?
Right. True.
Right? Just that reflection of that.
Yeah. I also think, to all of those points, for me, it also comes to the energy and the energy that we bring in. And I think sometimes when we push too hard for things, it actually inadvertently pushes it away from us, as opposed to just letting things unfold exactly as they should, as long as we just keep taking small actions towards whatever we're working towards. And I want to come back to that as it relates to how the fear and success conversation that we've had before has impacted you. But first, we have a comment from Haley. Yes, Haley, I agree with that. It's a release when we start just living in the moment for the now. Agreed. So and I think that this goes for so many people, right? That those of us who have goals on our mind, whether we're working towards that new career or whether we're working to open a business or a side hustle or whatever it is, there's millions of amazing people who just have dreams on their heart of what they want to do with their lives as they keep moving forward. And I think that self-doubt and that lack of confidence and that self-esteem can all play factors.
Yeah.
And to me, in all of that is fear. How have you navigated that fear of success that we've talked about before? And what do you recommend that people can start doing to start building up their confidence muscle, per se, of overcoming that fear and going after the things that they want?
Definitely action. For me, is totally action, because so growing up, and in the book I go through, being bullied and having low self-esteem. So right at the beginning of my life is basically when all that started. So, and then, transitioning and allowing different relationships that I never should have been in due to that low self-esteem. So for me, but I've always wanted to own my own business, and I've had several failed attempts at it. But I was never giving up. I thought there's just keep going, just pushing through, and blaming it on the economy or things like that. But what I've learned over the years is it's you only grow at the rate of I heard this the other day. Basically, if you don't continue to educate yourself, you're never going to grow. So if you stay stuck where you're at, there is no growth. So I think as an entrepreneur, you constantly have to learn new things. And I was in the mode for so long of learning new things. I was networking. Like at age 20, I was networking my butt off. I would drive an hour to go to networking meetings that was not in my where I was living at the moment, and doing all those things. But because I wasn't seeing the results fast enough, then I got discouraged. So, but if you really take a look at how everything works, being an entrepreneur it's a journey. It's not a sprint. And a lot of things, if people don't see results fast, then they're thinking, oh, this isn't working. And, you just have to give yourself that time. And, people have no idea who you are if you're just sitting in your home, not doing anything. And so for me, I had a couple weeks ago, I felt completely overwhelmed because I had so much to do on my to-do list. And because for the last year and a half, I've been doing a lot of stuff that I had never before done in my life. Like for 25 years, I've been a bookkeeper. That's all I knew. I didn't know anything about writing a book. I didn't know anything about marketing myself. I didn't know anything about how to produce a live show. I didn't know any of that. So I was then I got stuck in this like paralysis. Well, because I didn't know, but I wasn't sure where to find the information. So, then I got a good kick in the butt from you and said, well, slow down your list here, pick 3 things and focus on that. So that's what I've been doing. And since I've done that, and, I've been taking classes since last July, different coachings and different things like that. And then I've been taking classes on how to do a live show and getting some emotional and spiritual healing, because I believe that if you don't heal the inner, you're never going to be successful anyways, because that's always going to stalk you. That, the emotional bondage that we keep ourselves in is what prevents us from moving forward.
Yeah.
And for me, I know, because I had those thoughts in my head where, well, you're never going to get enough. And, I've had family members tell me, well, those last businesses failed. So what makes you think this one's going to not fail? And, for people who should be your cheerleaders, but I'm here to tell you that your family is not always your cheerleader, because they don't want to see you hurt. They don't want to see you discouraged. So when you're working around the clock and it's still not working, and they see how frustrated and discouraged you really are, but you don't look for others for validation, look within yourself, because that's huge. Because I always used to, well, what does this person think? Or what does that person think? Well, it really doesn't matter, because those people don't pay your bills anyways. You do. So, just keep moving forward. Action is the key. And once you start putting action into place, then that fear just drives away,
Yeah.
So
again, so many great nuggets, Dorothy. One piece that you threw in there that I don't want to step over is, I really believe that the people close to us never mean any harm.
Mm-hmm.
They never mean any harm. It's just maybe they're coming from a different perspective and a different life. Maybe they've tried things that they just have a different perceived limitation on their own. And I really believe, to the comment that you alluded to, is they're just trying to keep us safe, right? The people who love us are just trying to keep us safe.
Yeah.
So some of the things that I've done to help grow and expand, building the things that I want to do without letting fear slow me down. First, like you mentioned, really overcoming those limiting beliefs and the emotional barriers that we maybe have from stories that we have from when we were young. that it's time that we reframe and that we build a different way. Yeah. And then one of the things that I find so helpful, and I tell everybody this, is you just have to know what you want and why you want it. When you get really locked solid of, this is what I'm out to achieve, and I'm out to impact people and make sure they're not lonely in this world, and I'm out to make sure that people understand their feelings, then that can drive us so powerfully, at least for me. Yeah. A couple of the other things that I do within my normal daily routine, especially around anything that is a limiting belief, is I really believe in anchoring moments. And when I have moments that I step into, like moments like now, and I can just take a step back afterwards and say, yes, I did that. It's proof, because then we anchor it. And then our brain has proof to say, see, Jen, you did it. You can do it again. And I also use acknowledgement journals a ton for myself and all of the people that I work with, because there's something to be said for, I think our brains naturally go to default to look for problems and look for things that aren't going well. If we teach our brain to start looking for positive and looking for good and looking for how we can acknowledge ourselves, it's going to start naturally seeing it more. Yeah. Awesome.
Sorry, I was just writing that down. There's something that popped in my. If I don't write it down, I find that it goes away.
Dorothy, if you saw the notes I've taken already this morning, same page, all good.
I just want to. That is huge. Acknowledge where you've been compared to where you are now.
Yeah.
And for me, I never ever did that, because I didn't. Comparing yourself to other people is one thing, but comparing yourself to yourself is key. Because for so many years I would compare my success to other people's and then get discouraged. But if I look back, like, okay, so I'm not where I want to be in life right now. Obviously, I don't think all of us are. There's a lot. Well, I gave you 4 typed pages of what I want to do in my life. So
you did.
I'm on chapter, like line 1. And for me, because I am a detail-oriented and results-driven person, when I don't see the results right away, I get discouraged more easily than somebody who just goes with the flow and lives in the moment all the time. And I'm trying to get there. I really am. But the other day, I'm just like, I had this aha moment where I'm like, do you realize what you just done? You wrote a book. You have your own live show. You've been doing Facebook Live since last July. Somebody who would be in a corner instead of talking to other people. And I was just like, wow. I'm like, that's pretty good. Like, not that I'm the best at everything that I do, but I was just like, I finally acknowledged and thought, wow, I may not be where I want to be. Someday Oprah and I will share the same stage, but until then, just keep working on that and keep building on that. But I think another coach had said, break down your wins every day. Yeah. So, and how do you celebrate them? Like, have some kind of small celebration with that. And okay, so I wrote it down, and then I'm like, okay, yay. I did my workout. I did this, I did that. I connected with people, and I did all the things that I was supposed to do. But I don't think I ever gave myself enough credit for that. And someone who says, you realize how strong you are. Once you read the book, you'll understand that, because everything that's led up to today, everything's in that book.
Overcomer,
which you can find on Amazon. And it's a powerful tool. But somebody said, 2 people in 1 week said, do you realize how strong you are? And I'm like, to me, it's just, I keep going. To me, it's my life, and I don't know anything different. So I just keep going. And where with other people, it would probably have knocked them out by now. But, just acknowledge where you're at. Yes, you want to be somewhere else, but just acknowledge what you've done. That's huge.
Well, in that comment, Dorothy, one of the things that I've definitely shifted for me, especially in the last couple of years, is being grateful for where I am right now. And to your point, acknowledging, yes, everything that I've done to date, but not being as focused as to where I'm not yet. Just because, again, to the comments earlier about allowing it coming, and everything's coming exactly as it should. And I can tell you from someone who was never good at that, because I always wanted things now.
Yes.
It's definitely been a healthy life shift for me to be patient with the process and know that, I know things now, having my coaching business over the last year and a half. And I've led people for 20 years, but it's been a whole different dynamic. And there's things that I learned now that I didn't know then that's made me a stronger person and coach for individuals.
Yeah.
And then as we keep moving forward, we're going to know differently in 5 years. So I think that, again, just being grateful for moments, and just looking forward to saying, if I keep going on this road, I'm just going to keep growing as long as you keep going to that point.
Yeah.
And we might have to do a second episode at some point, because you brought up another point that I really want to come back to, and being mindful of everyone and yours time. I committed to a half hour, so I want to keep that commitment.
Yeah.
And for a future episode, guys, we'll come back to it. But as we talk about low self-esteem and low confidence and limiting beliefs, guys, I can tell you that's maybe that'll be the next round of conversations of how to build up that self-esteem. Because I think that there's points for all of us in life that we may have things that are just, we get really hard on ourselves about. And sometimes, depending on where someone is in their current life, it can be not as easy to come back from. And having those small, consistent actions of how they can rebuild and reestablish that trust in themselves, or maybe just establishing it at all. Maybe there's someone who's always had a low self-esteem in a certain area and completely making a different story behind it. So future conversation, Dorothy, don't let me forget.
No problem. I wrote it down.
Yes. Awesome. Love it. Well, this has been amazing. And yeah, thank you. Any final tips for our viewers that you want to mention about fear and success and moving through?
I think just really, like you said, trying to be more in the present moment, and just embracing what's happening right now instead of jumping 10 leaps ahead. That's one of the biggest takeaways that I've gotten from this conversation. And, I have to really improve upon that daily, because, that's just who I am. But I'm being more present and allowing things to happen instead of pushing for things to happen. So
yeah. We're all in daily practice, Dorothy.
Yes.
So awesome. Guys, thank you for tuning in today. And if you caught the replay, if there's ever any additional comments or topics that you want to hear, I would love to hear about them, as I keep bringing the conversations forward. So thanks again. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you later. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.